And it was like this expectation of no matter what you do, it doesn't matter how much. And each year I was getting faster and my PBs were getting better and I was getting higher world rankings. But like nobody was looking at any of that. All they were looking at is, have you beaten your sister?
The Imperfects invites you into a very safe place. A place where we share without judgment and drink heaps of vulnerability. Grab yourself a cup. This is the Vulnerability House.
Well, we are itching to get going. We've already started asking questions and talking to Bronte, and but we're excited. We've got an Olympic gold medalist, 2-time, many medalist person.
28 medals she's got.
28?
Did you know that? Do you know you got 28 medals? Like as in medals that would if you were to look up your
Do I have
career.
28?
You're 28.
I thought I had 27.
Well,
That's excellent because I wanted it to be the same as my age. And I'm 28 and I've got 28 medals, which means that I'm turning 29 this year. So I'm going to have to...
What are you going to do?
Win something.
I'm going to have to win something.
We could give you a medal.
Great. I'll take it.
When you're 29. Well, yes, Bronte Campbell is here in the Vulnerability House. Hugh, I will leave it to you to read the long list. Actually, it's slightly different today, the way that we're going to introduce our guest. And I hope you don't mind, Bronte, but so Bridget, our producer, as who you know, she always writes the bios for all of our guests. And recently we realized that because there's this new thing called Chat GPT, you heard of this, like AI, you know?
Yeah.
So we sort of realized that, well, I guess like AI could probably write these bios, especially for people who have like a public profile and, you know, have information. So what we've done today is the bio has been written by artificial intelligence, and Hugh's going to read it, and then you can let us know how right or wrong they got
Okay,
it.
well, I'm not going to take the 28 medals as fact then. Maybe I don't have 28. I don't know. That's very funny.
Yeah.
I actually did this the other day for
did you?
myself because someone asked for a bio and I don't have one.
Yeah.
And I asked the free GTP,
Yes.
not like the paid one.
Yeah.
I asked it to do it and it was very wrong. So I can't wait to see what this says.
Standing at 20 feet tall.
Okay, here we go. Bronte Campbell is an Australian former swimmer born on May 14, 1994 in Malawi. So far, so well, former
Well,
swimmer?
I'm not a former swimmer because I've never retired.
Okay.
And I'm still
Okay.
swimming, so
Wrong.
wrong already.
She's known for her freestyle sprinting ability and has been a part of the Australian national team since 2012. Campbell's career highlights include winning 2 gold medals at the 2016 Rio Olympics in the 4x100 metre freestyle and the 4x100 metre medley relays.
That's not right.
Okay.
Oh.
Eh.
What's the correction on that?
I was only in the freestyle relay, which we won golden.
Not
That's
the
my
medley.
that was my only medal at that Olympics.
Right, okay. Sorry if that was insensitive of AI.
Yeah.
Let's agree you don't have to apologize for the robot.
You know what? That's a good point. That's a good call. And a silver medal in the individual 50 metre freestyle event.
No.
Okay.
These seems like very concrete things for it to get wrong.
I know.
This robot's an idiot.
Throughout her career, Campbell has set several national and world records. In 2016, she became the first Australian woman to break the 52-second mark in 100 metre freestyle,
That didn't happen.
setting a new world record in a time of 51.67 seconds.
Yeah, so the world record is 51.76 seconds and it's had by Sarah Kirsten from Sweden. So that is not even at all correct.
It's more like artificial intelligence. Am I right?
In 2021, Campbell announced her retirement from competitive swimming.
Wrong.
Didn't happen, citing the desire to pursue other interests outside of the sport.
Yeah. I mean, I did say I was having a break
Okay.
and I did say an indefinite break and we all remember Silverchair did that
Oh.
and they haven't got back together.
Yeah.
So maybe.
We all remember that.
We all do remember that.
Okay. All right.
Overall, Bronte Campbell's career as a swimmer was highly successful, and she'll be remembered as one of Australia's greatest female sprinters. Said
True.
like you're no longer with us.
That's true. I mean, that is true, though. I mean, it's true. You will
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. There you go. So not incredibly accurate.
I'm going to give it 2 out of 10. That was
Okay.
not
That's low.
ideal.
Okay, so Bridge actually sent through a Word document which had her bio followed by chat. Who do we chat? What?
Chat GPT.
GPT.
Yes.
Okay. And I misunderstood and I read Bridges through first and I said, God, this AI writes beautifully. So anyway, we probably should have gone with the more accurate one. But I think everyone knows who you are. But if not, you're a bloody great swimmer and you're still swimming.
Yes.
Yes. But confusion is okay from the robot, I think.
Yeah.
I had 18 months off after the last Olympics and I haven't really told anyone that I was swimming again. But I have been for the last few months with an aim to go to Paris Olympics.
Oh, wow.
When's
exciting.
Paris Olympics?
2024. So
Okay, great.
July, August 2024.
Wow.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, in defense of the machines, they are still learning, so they'll get better. They'll
Listen
get
to
better
you
with
trying to just get some.
defend technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got so many questions to ask you, but that's not my job because
Well, not in a vulnerability house.
No,
Mm.
there's one question to answer. But we just caught up, and it's often to like try and just get a feel for what the interview might be like. But I have just asked you so many questions about your program and
Fitness stuff.
the food that you eat and sleep and things that we're probably not here. That's what I want to ask more questions about. Maybe we'll do that off air.
Yeah, we can get another lunch.
Yes, please.
I love talking about this stuff. We had a great conversation.
Oh, I really enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
A lot. Anyway,
I don't think I was invited.
I definitely didn't
No,
get
we
the
weren't.
invite. No.
That's okay.
That's fine.
All good. So, Bronte, in front of you is a deck of bluey cards, and on each of these cards is a question which will hopefully invoke some form of vulnerability from you. If you pick the top 3 cards and read them out loud, and if one of them strikes a chord, resonates with you in some way, then we would love it if you could answer. But don't feel like you need to. If none of them really are good for you, you can just sort of keep picking cards until there's one that you want to answer. It's pretty loose rules here.
There's about 40 cards here, so that could take a while. And also, I have actually listened to the podcast before, and I love your guys' work.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
Thank you.
But I didn't realize when you said that there were bluey cards that they were actually cards with Bluey the dog on it. Like,
Yes, I know.
I was like, oh, they're just blue-ish, but they're they're actually bluey. So this is a nice peek behind the curtain for me.
that's really
Yes,
good.
They are
Really bluey.
traditional, like unlicensed bluey cards.
They're pretty blue, these cards.
Yes.
All right, so picking the first cards. Oh, so a good one. It says, who have you never properly thanked for the influence they had on your life?
Hmm.
Have we had that question come up before? I'm not sure we have.
I'm not sure we have. It's a good one, though.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It's a lovely question.
That's actually embarrassing long list of people that come
Oh.
to mind when that.
Really?
I mean, who do you sit down and you say thank you so much for the influence you've had on your life? I feel like you sort of
I guess.
thank
yeah.
people along the way, but it's very rare that I would sit down and like contemplate the whole thing.
Yeah, it's true, because often you probably feel the need to thank people once like a relationship comes to an end. Like if you're like a working relationship
Yeah,
ends, you're like,
yeah.
oh, thank you so much for all that.
Yeah.
As opposed to during it, like if you're still working with the person.
Or
Yeah.
in your case, like after you win a race, like to your coach, thanks so much for everything you've done, but not.
Yeah, I mean, I thank him after a race. Like you said, like there's a milestone, you say thank you, but like there's some people that have an influence on your life, but there's no milestone. Like I'm thinking of like my best friend.
Oh,
There's no like milestone for like, oh, we just achieved this in our friendship. It's like, no, thank you for like the influence you've like had just by being yourself. That I don't think we really do. Or I don't do that.
No, I don't do
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
I'm going to go
sure.
home and say thank you to my best friend. I
Oh,
like this.
who's your best friend?
Olivia Russell. Go Lib.
Russo.
In next card, in a film about your life, what challenges would the main character have to overcome?
The main character being you.
The main character being me.
It'd be funny if you chose someone else.
It's a film about my life, but the main character's mum. So I'll talk
Main
about-
character is my best friend Olivia Russell.
Okay, yeah, I love that question. That's an interesting
No, I
one.
really like that one. Got a few things coming up for that, but we'll pick the third one, see what happens. If given a free pass, how would you want to be forgiven? Oof.
I mean, that's heavy.
With flowers? Or
From Olivia?
Just
Yeah.
like, just 10 grand should cover it.
Yeah. I actually think the one that sort of spoke the most to me was the film about your life, and not just because I want someone to make a film about my life. But there's been a lot of challenges in swimming that I've had to overcome in order to perform. But there's also been, if you're thinking about the film of your life, it's more than just what's in the pool. And I think that's what's really interesting about this one, is there's some challenges that aren't necessarily in the swimming pool, which form part of the life story, which, yeah, I think that's going to be my one
Okay.
bluey card.
Is there, just before you get started into actually answering it, are there any actors that come to mind who would be playing you in the movie about you?
Well, I've not really thought about it, but Emma Watson.
That's a great choice. I think she'd be great.
So do I.
Yeah.
Emma, if you're listening,
I think she listens.
I'm pretty
Who
sure
plays
she does.
Olivia Russell?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe like Miranda Kerr or someone.
Cool.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Miranda Kerr doesn't act, so we'll see what happens.
That'd be a huge challenge for her. I'm sure she could do it, but, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so
I'm just thinking, who would play who would you like to play you?
Eugene Levy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, didn't need that much of an agreement. I'm sort of hoping people will go, no, not Eugene Levy. You look nothing like him. But
Well,
I
you
do.
picked him. Like,
yeah, I know. It's sort of the.
You mean Eugene Levy like a few years ago?
Thank you. Yes.
40 years ago.
What about, I think we know yours.
Yeah, the weirdest thing came to my head then of who would like to play me, which is, I almost don't want to say it 'cause it's so weird.
I'd like you to say,
Claudia Carvin.
wow.
No,
Claudia Carvin. I don't know.
She's great.
Well, it's definitely a stretch for her, but she's a great actress.
Who doesn't love Claudia Carvin? She'd be amazing.
Is this something you've thought about before?
I watched your Australian Story the other night, and I just thought, I remember I was on the couch by myself,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh, if anyone was like played my character, it would be her. And I was like, that's not going to happen because it's weird. She's just something about her face is just so vulnerable and open and
Yeah. Oh, not. She looks like me. That's
no,
not what
no,
you're
I don't think.
thinking.
No, I don't. She looks like me.
Yeah, okay.
I just thought she seems like one of the best people of all time. I'd like her to represent me, but anyway, this has got very weird very quickly.
Right.
Josh,
Okay.
did you-
Oh yeah, Josh, who would play you?
Matt Damon.
Actually,
Pretty good.
can I have Rick Davies?
Oh,
Yes.
of course.
Rick Davies play me? That'd be the
Yeah.
honour of a lifetime.
Former guest on the podcast,
Yeah.
Rick Davies. Yeah.
Oh, it's all hypothetical, so you can have
Yeah.
wherever you want.
I'd like to hang out with him more. So I feel like if he had to play me, we'd have to hang out a bit.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
that could be an excuse.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this is definitely not the
Back to
subject.
Bronte?
Yeah, back to Bronte.
Sorry, Bronte, I made that very weird by saying Claudia Carvin.
So Bronte, yes, in a film about your life, what challenges would your character, would the lead character being you, Bronte, have to overcome?
I think I'll answer in two ways. I think the obvious thing would be about injury and all the things I've had to do in the pool to overcome that. So for background, I've been injured for over half my career, and trying to manage that and overcome it in order to perform has been a very long process. But I actually kind of want to go a little bit further back and talk about comparison instead.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
for people that don't know, me and my older sister Cate compete in the same swimming event.
Mm-hmm.
So we compete in the 100 and the 50 meters freestyle. And that means that we compete against each other a lot of the time for a limited resource, which is a spot on the team or a gold medal or a place on the podium. And we've been doing that on an international stage for over 10 years. But I've been doing that since I was 7 years old when I first started swimming. And we not only used to train together, we also lived together. When we went around teams, we'd room together. And the comparison started for me at an incredibly young age, because Cate as well, she hates me saying this, but it's true, and I say it with like a lot of pride. She is objectively better than me, which ChatGPT did not pick up on.
Do you mean objectively better in the sense that she's like more successful?
Yeah, if you looked at Kate's
Like
stats,
times,
if we
basically.
compared them, like her times are faster than me. She's achieved a lot more than me. She's been in the sport longer than on like pretty much every single metric. She will be better than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Including she qualified for her first Olympics when she was 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to 15 years old, the questions are, well, when are you going to make your team?
God.
Wow.
But I mean, I qualified for my first Olympics when I was 17, but it's not as good as 15.
Oh my God.
And whether it's external or whether it's something like, sometimes people actively would say things like that, but sometimes it's just coming from inside of yourself, like that little demon that everyone has that's like always looking around being like, well, what's everyone else doing? And comparison to Cate, I was right next to her every single day, so I could compare myself in training every single day to this is what the best in the world looks like. And that made me a very good swimmer, but it also was incredibly challenging at points. And I think if we were different people and we had different backgrounds, it would have imploded. But I'm very grateful that it hasn't, and we've used it as an asset in the latter part of our career. But definitely growing up, it was a tricky one.
There's the saying like, comparison is the thief of joy. Is that what it did to you at certain parts of your career? Take the joy away from swimming, having that?
Yeah, I think having that definitely did. And when we first started swimming, it was, I'll take you all the way back why this is so ironic that I even have to bother about dealing with Cate as someone to be compared to. When I first started swimming, I was 7 years old. I just moved to Australia from Malawi. I just watched the 2000 Olympics. I watched Grant Hackett win the 1500 freestyle. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an Olympic swimmer. I'm going to swim 1500 meters. I don't want to do that. I only want to swim 50 meters, but that bit came later. And we moved to a brand new country with people, didn't know a single person. Moved halfway through the school term. I'd never been to school before. I did homeschool when I was in Malawi. And the thing that brought me into Australia and made me have a sense of belonging was the swimming pool down the road, where I could walk to and train hard. And this was something that made me feel like myself, but people also liked that I was doing that. Like it became part of this way to be normal. I was like a kid who'd never worn shoes. Like I would walk down the road to the swimming pool. I would get myself up early, an hour before training started, set my own alarm. I was 7 at this point.
Jeez.
And then put on my cap and goggles and my togs and walk barefoot to the swimming pool.
That's adorable.
Down Moggle Road at Inchfield, cap and goggles on, and then I'd sit on the side of the pool and watch the big kids train for 45 minutes because I was convinced it was going to make me an Olympic swimmer. And that's all I wanted when I was 7 years old.
That is the best.
Isn't it tragic?
No, it is so
It's pretty
awesome.
adorable.
It's, I used when I got my first pair of footy boots, I wore them to the footy at the MCG.
That's so cute.
not extremely practical.
That's so good.
And when Josh, my younger brother by 6 years, when my friends used to come over when you would have been about 6, 7,
Yeah.
he would just like walk in. I'd be hanging out with him trying to do cool stuff because like 13, 14, and he'd just walk into my bedroom fully dressed in his cricket whites, pads on, helmet on, with a bat and a ball, just standing there looking at us. So
Are we going to play backyard cricket or what?
There's something about the gear when you're a kid.
Oh,
and
the gear's
maybe
the
when you're an
best.
adult too, but like
Yeah.
you just
When
want
you're
the
an
gear on. Like it puts you in the
Absolutely.
zone.
Did you swim in Malawi before was swimming part
Yeah.
of your life before coming to Australia?
Yeah, not in a competitive sense. So
yeah.
my mum was a synchronized swimmer,
Yeah.
and she used to teach that at the local high school, and I used to jump in with those guys and swim. I was like 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Malawi's got a big lake, so we used to swim in that lake a lot. It was more of like a fun environment, and my grandma used to teach kids swimming in her backyard as well.
Yeah.
There's sort of been this like love of swimming through the female generation of my family, which
Yeah,
has been
yeah.
passed down. But I loved it, but it was never like a competitive training thing
That
until
happened
I
once you were here.
flicked the switch and was like, okay, I want to race, I want to train. And so yeah, I used to train 5 days a week, and that's a
This
lot.
is when you're 7?
Yeah, when I was 7. Maybe my coach pulled me back. He was like, I don't really want to see you 5 days a week. There's no world champion 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
He was quite smart. Yeah, he had. If they all wore their cap to training, maybe they would. And I went to Cate also used to swim at the swim club.
How much older is Cate?
She's 2 years older.
Two.
So yeah, really close in age.
But you would just walk there by yourself.
Oh
a
yeah,
7-year-old walking by themselves, no shoes on, fully
Yeah.
dressed, ready to go.
yeah, just
Unbelievable.
ready
What
to
time
dive in.
How early is this? Pretty early?
Oh, it probably wouldn't have been that early. It was probably like 6:30 or 7 or
Okay,
something.
Pretty
like,
early.
Early for me.
Early for me.
early for me now that I'm older, but
Yeah.
kids wake up early, right?
Yeah, that's
They're-
true.
They're springy
it.
like that.
I certainly do.
So Cate would come at like, say training started at 7 o'clock. She would rock up at 5 minutes to 7, which is on time.
Yeah.
It's early. I would just be like 45 minutes early. And she used to turn around at the flags and walk on the bottom of the pool and like try let people lap her so she didn't have to do as many laps. But I used to
Oh.
like count my laps and count her laps and be like, you got to do more. Or like, she just didn't really care about it. It was just a fun place for her, which is also fine. And then we went to our first swimming carnival and I won like 4 medals and my age championship trophy. And Cate won a bronze medal in the 25 backstroke, which she was quite happy with until it was compared to my gold medals,
Right.
Yeah.
which I like to wear around my neck and they'd clink, and like I was 7, like I was
Of
pretty
course.
proud of it. Like,
Yeah.
and she stole my medals and hid them under her bed, which is, I think, probably the only self-respecting thing you can do when your younger sister is parading around.
Flaunting that.
Yeah.
And Mum was like, Cate, Bronte worked really hard for her medals. Like, yeah, probably don't wear them around every day, but I've watched you train and you don't work hard, and that's fine. But if you don't work hard, you may end up with a bronze medal, and that's fine if that's all you want. But if you want the medals, you can't steal them. You have to work for them.
Good lesson.
And that was the monster of Cate getting created. One
Wow.
of the best.
So it was built from comparison.
It was built from comparison and built from my dream, my
Yeah.
comparison. I was
Yeah.
the one who was like doing my dream, and then she was like, "Oh, I like that. I'm gonna train hard." And she committed to wanting to do the Olympic dream. But I think also from that age, like I never even saw it as, "Oh, Cate's taken over my dream." It was like, "Oh, let's do this together."
Yeah.
It was
Mm.
like a nice thing, like, "Oh, let's do it
Mm.
together." Imagine like going to the Olympics together.
But even at that age, were you being told by people, or was it clear that you were better than the average 7, 8, 9-year-old?
No, I didn't. I don't think I won an age championship until I was 16.
Oh, okay. So you
So-
weren't like immediately.
No, when I say I won those 4 medals, it was at like a local meet down the road,
Okay.
like 25-meter races. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
they were just exciting medals for me.
Gotcha.
It
Yeah.
wasn't like I was this
State champ or
insane
something. yeah.
talent who just rocked up. It was that came a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
Because I think we all know that it's such a weird feeling of when you find like a new interest, and then one of your friends goes like, "Oh, I might do that as well."
Yeah.
And then they start doing it, and they're easily better at it than you are.
Mm.
Or they get more attention for it or whatever. It's weirdly annoying.
Yeah, you're like, that's
That's
mine.
mine.
It's
Yeah.
mine.
I found that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely, and then for it to be your sister who you're living with, I mean, it's so great that you're able to kind of like come to a place where you're excited to do it together and climb together. But
Well, I think we were excited because we were kids, and it's
Yeah.
like you only really know the people in your family. And this is when I'm very young, and sort of went through different stages of the comparison being a good and a bad thing. And at that age, it was actually great to have Cate there. And you only really know the people in your family. We just moved to a new country. I didn't know anybody else. So the fact that my best friend and my sister wanted to join me on this was actually a really nice thing. And I didn't see it as she's taking my thing. It was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm not going to be alone doing this because I don't know anyone else.
And you don't have to keep counting her laps. She'll do
Yeah,
it.
now she'll just count her own laps.
Yeah.
But I probably would have counted them anyway. If you could look up like an absolute swimming geek, like that was me. I was just an absolute nerd about it and so intense about it.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more relaxed now, which is a weird thing to say.
And so was there a point when you were a child or teenager where it sort of started to move from being, oh, this is fun that we're swimming together, to I really want to be better? Did that ever happen? I want to be like the more successful of the two of us?
It definitely did happen. And we qualified for our first Olympics together in 2012. So Cate had gone to the 2008 Olympics. She won 2 bronze medals. And then in 2012, we qualified for the 2012 Olympics together in the 50 freestyle. And that is the happiest I've ever been after any race I've ever done. Like,
as in the national trials,
the qualification for it. So yeah, the way trials worked, which Huey spoke about, was now they're 5 weeks before. They used to be 3 months before the major meet, whatever it is. You go to trials. If you come first or second, you qualify for the team. If you come third, you don't qualify. So you got to come back in 4 years and try again. And the 50 freestyle was the last possible chance for me to qualify for the team. And I had to finish first or second. And I was racing against Libby Trickett, who I'd grew up watching race and watching her do a really good thing. I was like, I'm going to have to beat her and my sister, one of them at least, to come second in this race. And Cate touched the wall first and I touched the wall second. And that is the happiest I've ever been. Like, hands down, I've never felt that happy after a race because it was finally happening. Like, the two of us were going to go to the Olympics together, like that first realization of the dream. So that was an amazing thing. And for both of us, going to that Olympics together was this realization of this thing that we talked about when we were 7 and 9 years old in the back of the car on the way to training. We're going to go to the Olympics together. And we both used each other as a comfort on that team. It's quite an overwhelming environment. I 17 when I qualified, I was 18 when I went, and like pretty shy, pretty awkward in this 10,000 athletes in this village. I'm looking at Michael Phelps and Usain Bolt walking around, and I'm like, I barely know how to like talk to anybody, let alone these people. And like Nadal's like sitting at breakfast with me, and I'm like, your head's exploding. So I was like, very much, Cate's my crutch in this situation, and so good to have her because she'd been here before. Even the other people on the team, I grew up idolizing them and watching them race, and now I'm on the same team as them. So in that overwhelming environment, so good to have Cate.
Yeah.
But then as we got older, the comparison became more and more from the outsides, and I'd have people actively asking me, well, when are you going to beat her? At that point, the narrative and the story was, oh, it's amazing, you can do this together. And then from 2012 until 2014, Cate was undefeated internationally in the 100 freestyle. So 2012, she actually had pancreatitis at the Olympics and couldn't compete in the 100 freestyle. But then, like, after the Olympics, internationally, she was undefeated. So I was sort of faced with a situation where I could be the second best person in the world and not even the best person in my family. And people are going, and people act like swimming parents and people on the street and randoms just saying, well, the real question is, when are you going to beat your sister?
In a sort of tongue-in-cheek way, or not like a sort of...
Just genuinely
putting
it forward, yeah.
I think at some point you stop differentiating between how someone's intending something because the question's still the same. It's like they may be kind of joking, but there's a reason that they're asking that.
Yeah.
And it was like this expectation of no matter what you do, it doesn't matter how much. And each year I was getting faster and my PBs were getting better and I was getting higher world rankings. But like nobody was looking at any of that. All they were looking at is, have you beaten your sister? Which is she was the best in the world. Probably an unfair comparison. Like I don't think any other swimmer was getting asked, when are you going to beat the best person in the world? Unless they'd put it out there that they wanted to do that, which I hadn't put out. Like, oh, hey, my goal is to beat Cate at any meet. But she was, not only was she undefeated in every international race, but then I was training with her every single day. And she was on fire and I was getting beaten every single day. And then someone saying, why didn't you beat her? And you're like, I'm trying very hard.
Yeah.
And so what's that? So after you have a swim against her and she wins, is it, maybe this is more of a question for her, but is it hard? Well, two-part question. Is it hard for you to be happy for her when she's your sister and she's doing so well? But then also from her point of view, I wonder, is it hard for her to show her excitement in front of you?
Great question, Ryan.
It is a really good question. And at that point, no. But there was a particular sort of turning point where it did become really difficult. So for a long time, it was like, okay, as long as you've both just done a good race. So say in 2014 at the Commonwealth Games, she won the 100 freestyle and I came second in the 100 freestyle. And I went under 53 seconds for the first time ever. And I was like ecstatic. Like, and she had just done a really good time as well. And she'd won and she was stoked. So that's like joy amplified.
Yeah.
Like what an amazing thing. Like this is the actual dream. And then a year later, at not as big a meet, but a big meet, she just had shoulder surgery and she'd just come back from it. And we swam 100 freestyle and I went 53.13 and she went 53.12 and she beat me and she'd just come back from surgery and she wasn't supposed to beat me.
She wasn't 100%.
Yeah, in my mind, she wasn't 100%. I should have won that race. 53.1 in season is actually not a bad time. But 0.01 and she's won the race. She was very happy that she'd done a good time, but she knew also that I wasn't going to be as happy. So then it's this conflict where you're like, oh, I just don't know how to celebrate this in a positive way. And the bigger example of that is the 2018 Commonwealth Games. And that is the best 100 freestyle I've ever swum. That's where my PB was. Which is hilarious because it's a long time ago now. But I won that race. I went 52.27 and Cate went 52.6 and she came second in that race. And she had been at the 2016 Olympics. She was the world record holder going into that race. And 2016 Olympics was the hardest thing I think Cate's ever had to do. She does not like expectation. She wants to please everyone. And the pressure of going in as world record holder was too much for her at that time. And she came sixth in the 100 freestyle. 2018 was her comeback event from that. It was the first time she competed internationally since 2016. And like I watched how difficult 2016 was for her. And then 2 years later, I am the person stopping her from having a fairy tale ending to that chapter of her life. Like the work that she had to do, I don't think anyone can really understand how hard it was for her to pick herself up and keep going. Like she could have stopped and I don't think anyone would have blamed her for that. But the strength that she showed to keep going. And I'd just done this amazing race. I'd come off a bunch of injuries. It was the first time that I realized I could be injured and perform well. And I was like over the moon excited. And Cate was there like arms around me, cheering me on the podium, smiling. But like I knew that it was also hurting her
God, what a strange thing to experience.
Yeah, it is a strange thing. It's like incredible. If you talk about like bittersweet being a strange thing, that is exactly it. Because even when I was achieving the thing that I really wanted, there is still this tinge of I've kind of upset my sister in this process.
Going into that race, was that reality already present for you? Did you know if I beat her, that's the outcome here, or did that only occur to you once it happened?
No, I only thought about it afterwards.
Yeah.
I love racing.
Yeah.
I never think about whether I'm gonna beat anyone.
Yeah. Okay.
That's interesting.
No, never. Like I love it. Like you just get up and you're just like, okay, like I mean, you do when I get up behind the blocks, I don't think about if I'm going to beat a single person, but I think about there's 7 other people here. Like,
yeah, you're not personalizing it.
Let's see what we can do. And they're all just people at that point. Like both of us have got very good at being like, that's not my sister next to me. That's our person in lane 4 or a person in lane 6 or whatever.
Even in 2018?
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't expected to win that as well. Like Cate was expected to win it. I did a PB by 0.3 of a second, which is quite a lot. I went faster than I'd done all season. It was a very good race to get that result. It wasn't expected. I didn't expect it. I had no idea that was coming. So I definitely wasn't thinking about it before the race, but it's more afterwards. Even when we were standing on the podium, like it's your sister, you know her very well. I could see the effort that she was putting in to like smile and support me. And like even watching that effort is like painful to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh.
That must be so hard that so for years people are asking you when are you going to beat her? And then you do it and you can't even have full enjoyment of that.
Yeah. And I think that's the big lesson about comparison is it's really like there is no win. Even when you win, you don't win. There's no absolute winning with it. So, and it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I definitely did. It's just that there's
a tinge.
Which is why both of us love being in a relay team together.
Yeah.
So like we get to, from 2013 until 2021, we've been on relay teams together that have broken world records and won Olympic gold medals and Commonwealth Games medals and world champs, and like that's amazing.
That must be a relieving part of the night.
Yeah, it is.
Once the individual stuff's done, because
normally it's first up.
Is it first up?
Yeah,
okay.
the relay's normally first,
Right.
and then the individual stuff comes later.
Okay.
So it is nice to have this experience together, and then move on to the individual stuff, which can be really tricky, and it didn't used to be, and then as we got older, and I wanted to be my own person. And I think with your siblings, you kind of get to this point, or I did anyway, that I wanted to be seen as me and Cate, the duo, for a really long time. And I loved that, and I loved that identity. And then I got sick of being in Cate's shadow, and that shadow is not going to move away. Like she's a big... She actually is a very big, tall person. But she's a big presence and she cast a big shadow. Like if I want to get out of this, I have to move away. Like I have to step out of it. I can't stand next to her and not be in a shadow. So it only became a problem when I wanted to start doing that.
Was there any part of you in deciding to sort of step away from the shadow? That's sort of, even though that's very kind of like, it's self-empowering and it's exciting, but is there any part of it that's kind of scary because, I don't know, maybe there's a comfort in being in the shadow?
There is definitely comfort in it, and it's where I'd been for a long time. And more than performance comfort, there's also this comfort in identity, and like this is always a place that you can be at home. And then there's also the bit where in order to differentiate myself from my sister, I'm going to have to put distance, which when you've got close relationships, that can also be painful for both people. Like how do you create distance without losing connection is really tricky.
So how did you do it? How did you create the distance?
Not well at first. It definitely took us a while to find like a good equilibrium.
And when was this?
This would have been like around 2016 as well.
Yep.
So I would have been 22 and Cate would have been 24. And we stopped living together, which was the first thing.
Was it
It's really good.
was it discussed? Sorry to cut you off, but did you say?
Yeah.
Did you sit down and say, I think we need like time apart or some distance, or is that, or just you just made these decisions that suggested that's what you know?
Yeah. If I went back, I would have a discussion about it.
Pretty hard at 22.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, if only I knew what I knew 7 years ago, right?
Pretty hard at 41, I'd say.
Yeah, maybe the age bit isn't the problem. Maybe it's just a hard thing to talk
I think
about.
it is.
Mm.
So no, we didn't talk about it, and that's probably the problem. Is it's like, oh hey, I want to do something different. It's not because of you. It's because I need to do something different. It's like breaking up with someone, but you're not breaking up with them. You still want to see them, but you want to see them in a different way. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, we just started making decisions that would mean that we were doing different things a lot
So
of
you
the time.
and so you moved out,
Mhm.
moved to a different state. Is that right? Or
Oh, eventually, but yeah,
Okay.
lived in Brisbane still. We still trained every day together, but I mean, we'd become so enmeshed that we had the same friendship group. We'd do a lot of the same things, and swimming's a pretty isolating thing anyway, because you train early in the morning, then you've got a chunk of time in the middle of the day which is free, where you're studying normally from home, because like, who can be bothered to go to uni for 3 hours of lecture when you're doing something part time, right? And then you train in the afternoon, and then you're exhausted and you go to bed. So like, not many 22-year-olds are living that life.
yeah,
And so the opportunity to hang out with other people is quite limited.
Mm.
So we definitely like did a lot of the same things. It was like, I live with Cate, it's easy. If I want to go do something, I'll just do it with her. But it had to actively take a step away from that and find things that I enjoyed doing. And that's where that bit of like, no, this is mine, like that feeling came in that you were talking about before.
How are you guys different? Are you guys like?
We are so different, which is why it is so funny that we got seen as one person for a long time. Like, it was like, oh, Cate and Bronte, or like if I went to catch up with friends, I'd be like, oh, where's Cate?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was like we were literally a package deal like the Kit Kat or something.
Yeah.
But we're very different. Like, Cate's quite a little bit more reserved, more shy. I'd say she's a lot more caring than I am, a lot less flippant than I am. She thinks quite deeply about things and talks quite slowly. She's more on the introverted spectrum than I would be. I'm very extroverted, get my energy from people, like to be around people, talk a lot. So very different. Then we have, based off of that, very different interests. Yeah.
Did you always realize that you were different to each other from a young age, or is that something you've been learning since 2016?
You guys are very good at asking questions.
Josh particularly is known for it.
That is a very pertinent question, because no, I didn't really realize I was different, but everybody else did.
Wow.
Like, people who were close to me were like, yeah, you and your sister are different, but I saw us as the same because we were doing the same things.
You're kind of defined by your activities and your interests when you're a kid, I guess. So if you both like swimming, then you're the same.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, but absolutely, like, you both like swimming, and then, I mean, if people saw us out, it'd be like, oh, you both like going to the movies together, or you both like doing this, and we did have a lot of interests that we really liked. Like, we both like Harry Potter, but like, I don't think we're very unique in that. I think a lot of people like Harry Potter.
Specifically Emma Watson.
Yeah.
And this might be a bit personal, but did you want to be like her when you say you thought you were the same or similar and other people saw you as different? During that, were you wanting to be like her, or did you just
Yeah, I think so. Definitely in the pool, like, wanted to, and then outside of it as well. I mean, I mean, you guys know what it's like. You're brothers, right? Like,
yeah.
You want to be like your older siblings. That's, I think that's pretty natural, and I definitely had that. Like, I want to be like Cate. I want to be like Cate, and then it was like, oh, actually, I don't want to be like Cate. I want to be Bronte, which is a different thing, and difficult to articulate.
And wouldn't take a genius to realize that I'm projecting a bit here in these questions, because I know exactly what you're talking about, especially when, well, you love your sibling, or siblings, I should say. When someone has blazed a path that is so successful in any respect, and they're your sibling, I guess for me, I'm like, well, I just want to be like that because that's successful. And it's kind of scary when you realize the moment of like, well, I'm not that successful, but I'm also not that person either. And that kind of like stepping off into discovering who you are. And it sounds a bit strange to say it like that because it's not like I made a conscious decision to do that. I just found myself with no other option.
What do you mean?
Well, in sort of learning to be who you are, as opposed to trying to be like someone else, the person I'm sitting next to, I'm not sure. I think it's easy to talk about it in hindsight and say it was I started to move away from that and decide. But I find it to be a lot more tumultuous and scary and you don't know where you're going and you don't know who you are. You don't know what you're finding. So it's easy to make it sound like a linear story when you're talking about it in hindsight. But at the time, you just feel lost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're very right. And the image that comes to mind when you're talking about that is, you ever been like jungle bashing?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Hugh's walking in front, Kate's walking in front, and they're clearing the path. And then at some point you're like, I'm going to start making my own path.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is just a jungle now. Like I don't know where I'm going all.
You say Kate's a deep thinker. I think you are. That is a really good analogy.
Yeah. I think, and that's the word, I mean, you described it, I just put an image to it. But that's exactly how it felt. It's like, well, I was following a path, now I don't know where I'm going. And that's terrifying. And then it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's on the other side.
And you can go any which way you want.
Yeah, exactly. Now you get to pick, and choice is terrifying, and then it's exciting. And trying to, I've spent a lot of time trying to close the gap between the terrifying and the exciting, and I do it all the time in trying to pick up when something's not working and then jump straight into uncertainty. And people hate uncertainty. They don't like not knowing where they're going. But if something's not working, I'd rather jump into uncertainty than stay on the certain path, and I don't like where it's going. So I try to jump straight into uncertainty and stay there until the excitement of where I'm going sort of presents itself. And that's taken a long time to figure out how to do that.
In that journey and in the bush bashing your own path, which is such a good analogy, it must have been at a strain on the relationship between you and Kate. I'm assuming you've managed to sort of come back together, so to speak. Like, how do you, when you've had a relationship that's so close based on one form of identity and then you've blazed a new identity, how do you rebuild or foster that relationship with the new identity?
Yeah, I think it was, and definitely we have, I guess, come back together. But it was different for us as well, in that even though we were actually both looking for a bit of space to discover, like Kate really, after 2016, wanted to discover who she was outside the pool, and took a year off from competitive swimming and skydived and challenged herself in a bunch of different ways. So I think it came at a good time, is that we were both looking to do the same thing. But she was still training quite a lot. So even though we were both looking for a distance, we still saw each other every day, which is unnatural. I think normally if you were looking for a distance, you wouldn't automatically see someone every day. You would have to actively make an effort to see each other. So in some ways it was good, because I don't know how much we would have seen each other if we had to make an effort. And in other ways it was very hard to keep someone at arm's length when they're just right in your space the whole time. But we've definitely got a great equilibrium now. And I think the competitiveness that we have in the pool when we're actually racing, the transfer that started to happen, which we don't do anymore, but started to happen, was we transferred it to the other aspects of our life. It's okay, we're not going to compare ourselves in the pool, because we acknowledge that that's not helpful and not fair. but who's doing the most fun thing on the weekend?
Mhm.
Wow.
And like that was never overt, and maybe it was just from my point of view. But it was like, okay, I'm not gonna compare myself to Cate in the pool. Not that I'm not gonna try be better than her. I'm gonna try do my best. But like, how else can I be better than her? If I can't be better than her than this, like, how else can I do it?
Just secretly cooking in the background, trying to kind of like become a master chef. And one day I say to Cate, hey, do you want to do dinner tonight? Do you want me to do it? Or maybe we could both do a version and see whose is the better dinner.
Yeah. And this is how I dreamt up MasterChef.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in just listening to you both talk about that and your shared experience of bush bashing behind an older sibling, and for a long time thinking this is really good. I'm so interested to get Kate's thoughts on this, because as the older sibling, when you're like forging a path and you're going ahead and then you turn around and all of a sudden they're not there anymore, your first thing is to think, do they not like me anymore? That's like a bit of a thing that you go through of like, I don't know if they like me at the moment. And rather than like we're talking about having the conversation of like going, you wish you'd had the conversation. It's so obvious. I remember a point where Josh was no longer following behind, and that was my first thought. I don't know why I didn't go, he's probably trying to be his own person. That's totally fine. I was like, he doesn't like me.
Well, of course you didn't do that. Like, we think everything's about ourselves. We're like,
Yeah, I know.
if they've picked a different path, it must be because of me. Like,
Yeah.
and well, you have to talk to Cate about it. But I definitely think that she would have had that thought. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's not just you and Cate. You've got other siblings. How many siblings are there?
There's me and 4 others.
You and 4 others, right. So, and what's the age kind of?
So we're all 2 years apart,
Right.
except for the last one who's 3 years younger. So
Okay.
Kate's the eldest,
Yeah.
and then me, and then there's 3 others.
So when you guys are going through this sort of like swimming brilliance and you're both like achieving all this stuff, and then there's the other siblings, I don't know, maybe this is completely off the mark, but like it makes sense, like you talking about your older sister and comparing yourself to your older sister because you're both swimming, because she's 0.01 faster than you, but then you're quite, I don't know what your siblings do, were interested in, if they were even swimming or whatever, but I wonder if they were kind of like comparing themselves to you guys as well.
This is where I think your story is so fascinating, this around your siblings.
Yeah.
We particularly talked about your brother before.
Yeah, we were talking about it at lunch before, and before I talk about my brother Hamish, my other 2 sisters, I think, yes, it could have been very difficult for them. Neither of them are swimmers, so they didn't step into that arena for comparison and do very different things and lead very different lives. But I think the success of my parents was in never celebrating mine and Kate's performance in the pool as better than somebody else's achievement in my family. And a really good example is my brother Hamish. So my brother was born on my 4th birthday when we were living in Malawi. He was a stillborn who was resuscitated and had cerebral palsy from lack of oxygen to his brain during birth. It's quite severe cerebral palsy in that he will never speak, he is vision impaired, he will never walk, he'll never be able to feed himself, he'll never be able to sit up. But he's this like delightful, cheeky, just fun-loving person who I grew up with. And it's very difficult. Like, people are comparing me and Cate, right? But I'm going home every single day, and I've got my brother who used to sit, he had this special chair by the front door, and you'd come in and he had like a different like sound and way of greeting each one of us. You could tell by like the way we were talking to him who was there, even though he can't see us. And he'd be there like waiting and then stoked that you're there. And he would be like stoked that you spent time with him or play with him or feed him or like whatever. And he literally can't do anything for himself or communicate his needs incredibly effectively. Like, that must be so frustrating. But he's not frustrated. He's just this beautiful human being. And he was valued as much as me and Cate. So a good example is I won, when I was 10 years old, I won the 50 meters freestyle at Queensland State sprint meet or something. It was the first time I'd won a state medal, and I was like so excited. I mean, I think I'd come third and second, and but it was the first time I'd won. So it was like, for me, it felt like a big deal. I went 30.53, in case anyone cares. I
Just
remember
gonna
my
ask
times. Yeah, I could tell that's what you all wanted to know.
I was just thinking, God, you didn't do sub 30.54, did you?
That's it. And I came home, and Hamish, we'd been trying to teach him to hold things. So he likes to throw things. So, maybe he was a bowler in a past life, but like if you put anything in his hand, he'll chuck it. It's like still, even though he's got a lot of health issues at the moment, it is still like the absolute game that he will still play. If you put something near him, he will throw it. And at this time we were hoping he'd learn to feed himself. So teaching him that he had to hold something rather than throw it, and that was a good thing, was a really beautiful thing. And Hamish had decided he wanted to hold a spoon. So that night we were celebrating that, which doesn't mean that my achievement went unrecognized. You just have a level of, this is reality, and this is swimming up and down a swimming pool, and like it's not life or death, and it doesn't really impact anyone's life, and it's fine. But like, this is what reality looks like, and this is what struggle looks like, and that comparison has always lent a really big perspective to my whole family. I don't think that's always made it easier for my younger sisters, but I think that's why both me and Cate have been able to deal with it as well for so long.
Yeah, that is an amazing perspective.
It's pretty special. And I think it's also interesting that that what you brought up there is an example of how comparison can lend an incredibly positive influence on your life as well.
Yeah.
Like comparison's not always negative.
People always compare up. And I catch myself doing this all the time. I live in Sydney. You walk around, people are like, imagine if you lived there, imagine if you lived there, imagine. And you're like, look where you live. Like, this is great. Like, I live in a great place. And it's the same thing with coming from Africa and then living in Australia. Like, when I came here, I could not believe that people didn't have fences around their houses. I couldn't believe I could walk down the street. I couldn't believe I could go to South Bank, that there was like these free, safe, clean, amazing places, that education was free. Like, all of these things were amazing. I used to watch the garbage trucks every morning. They were like the most incredible things I've ever seen. And I don't watch the garbage anymore, but maybe sometimes I should, because it's so easy, the hedonic treadmill, right? Like, you just get used to what's good, and then you keep wanting to go further. And it's like, just look back at all the other things and all the other people in life. Like, I remember watching someone pull up in a seaplane in Sydney, in a cove at Milk Beach, jump out and then walk up to their house. And I was like,
it's just quicker for me than to get a taxi. All the way
yeah,
around.
absolutely, right? Like, quicker and, more exclusive, etc. And I was like, that dog has a better life than me.
Yeah.
I'm now comparing myself to a dog at this point. And I was like, you know what? If I was, and I've been to other third world countries, like, say, India. If I was in India and I met a beautiful family in India who I ended up spending a few days with. If I told them that I'd just spent $100 on an Uber last night, they would look at me like I'm looking at that dog. They'd be like, that is a week's worth of my wages, and you spent it on an Uber.
Yeah.
You could have caught a bus.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's so, I have to keep catching myself, because it's so easy to just keep comparing yourself to everyone who's looks like they're doing better than you. Forget that, like, we're in Australia. Look at us. Like, most of us are safe. Most of us are healthy. Most of us have good connection. Like, if you have those things, like, you're pretty good. You're in a very, unfortunately, you're probably in the minority of the whole world. It's easy to forget it. I forget it all the time. I sound like I'm like thinking about it all the time, but you forget. And I'm like, why don't I live in a mansion in Double Bay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think everyone could relate to that for sure. And particularly living in Sydney, it's pretty in your face, depending on which area of Sydney you're in. But if you're in sort of those inner city suburbs, and particularly by the beach, it's in your face. It's really hard not to think that.
The guy who started Afterpay just bought 2 apartment blocks on my street for $40 million and has knocked them both down to build his house. So
Wow.
you look at that, you're like, well, my apartment is 50 square meters. Can't you just give me a little bit? Like, it's so easy to compare, right? Like, it's right there. Like, the mega, if you look at wealth as a thing to chase, which, like, I don't necessarily, but wealth enables a lifestyle, right? You look at that, you're like, oh, how great would that be? But it's not really helpful. And also, can you imagine doing a renovation like that? That sounds stressful as. Like, it's probably not great.
No, but once it's finished and he lives in that house, then he'll be really happy. So
Yeah,
that
it's proven.
forever.
Yeah. I think that's what they've proven is that money equals happiness. I'm pretty sure I heard that
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably on this podcast.
You can make that up.
Yeah, that's finally someone got what we're trying to say on this podcast.
I love the image. I can't stop thinking about your brother greeting people when they come home. Just the most beautiful image.
Yeah.
I just love it so much.
Yeah, he's great.
We chatted a bit about this before. How's he going now, your brother?
Yeah, he's up until 2012, he had cerebral palsy, but he didn't have a lot of health complications. And then for the last 10 years, it's been so many complications compounded. We got a call when I was going to the closing ceremony of the 2012 Olympics, and they were like, your brother's going into surgery and he might not come back out again. And I went to the closing ceremony and everyone's celebrating and there was all the confetti going everywhere. And I was like, I might not have a brother when I get home. I mean, they didn't say he might not come back out again, but his bowel had nearly ruptured. And of course, I immediately looked up what that meant. It's not good. And since then, he's had a lot of health issues, and his care mainly falls on my mum, who's a registered nurse. So looks after a lot of the medical, or can look after a lot of the medical stuff as well. But he's been in palliative care for quite a few years as well. But he just keeps like fighting and hanging on, and he can be in a lot of pain, but he still might find a smile just for you when you come home. Like, those are the moments where you're like, this is actually inspirational. Like, who cares whether you can swim up and down a pool? Like, this is someone who's fighting to, like, just be in the world. Like, that's an amazing thing to be doing. And the thing I said to Hugh at lunch was, my brother hasn't eaten for like 6 years. Did you know that you could do that?
What?
Yeah. So he's fed intravenously. It's called TPN, and you can feed someone their bloodstream because his stomach and his bowel doesn't work. You can stay alive without eating. Like, this is like really amazing. Like, it's just incredible, his tenacity to stay alive, and also the team that looks after him and the doctors and my family. And I don't live in Brisbane, so his care falls entirely on the rest of my family. And it's all of them. It's like this team.
As you've said really beautifully about it's just swimming up and down a pool compared to what your brother goes through and is. But how was it for you when you were having these internal thoughts of comparison with you and Cate, and your brother's going through such severe health complications? That must have been a really tricky thing to hold all those things in your head at the same time.
I actually think it was helpful in a way. But I mean, Hamish had been having health complications for quite a long time before me and Cate started to really want to differentiate from each other. But I think that the fact that we had shared experiences and shared trials that were outside of the pool in a weird way was probably helpful for our relationship. And I think you see it a lot when people go through trials it either like makes or breaks a relationship. So our whole family had to band together really strongly at that time. And it's probably why we were able to deal with the extra pressure and comparison that came between the two of us.
Yeah, wow, that makes sense.
Mm.
Almost like it grounded you together.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
something more important.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it sounds so stupid to get caught up in when you look at it with a proper perspective, it does sound stupid to get caught up in a comparison of who went 0.01 of a second faster. But you do get caught up in it because it's your sport. You put almost every waking moment thinking about it, thinking about how to do better at it, doing it. So I'm not saying that I always am able to step outside of that, and there's times when I haven't been able to, but if I can, it's very helpful.
Yeah, and sorry, I hope I wasn't making it sound like I was saying it was stupid to get caught up on those.
No, you weren't.
comparisons.
You
I was
weren't.
just
But
more
it
interested.
is.
There's a lot of stuff going on in your head.
You weren't saying that, but like realistically, it is, right? I mean, everything we do, we made it all up. We made up that it's important. Like it's an Olympic gold medal. It's important because everybody decided that that's important. Like,
Well, it's more important to some people, and that's fine.
yeah, that's true.
That's okay. It doesn't. Yeah, I mean, it sort of becomes kind of existential, where it's like, what is important?
What is reality?
Yeah.
We're in a simulation, and the Chat GPT is going to take over.
Hopefully not. That's very concerning.
AI's got a whole new lot of data to work with now after today's conversation.
True. Before we wrap up, I just thought it could be interesting because you mentioned Libby Trickett before, and that time in your career. It's actually kind of probably the first time in our podcast where like timelines have like collided from different episodes, because she, in her episode on the Imperfects, she talks about that time from her point of view, like that exact race, I think.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying that out loud for I'm assuming a lot of swimming fans listening to this might want to link to her episode, but there's the other side of that is really an interesting perspective as well.
You guys.
Yeah, no, I
mentioning your sister.
actually listened to that episode, and I still talk to Libby every now and again. And I know, I mean, that's the weird thing, is I know how challenging that time was for her, because she was trying to stay in the sport, and me and my sister were like taking that away from her in essence.
And she was probably like a hero of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're, I mean, I remember warming up in lanes next to her, and then being like, and now, like, I really respect you, and now I'm going to go out and try beat you.
Yeah. It's a brutal thing, isn't it?
It is a brutal thing.
Wow.
I have loved this so much.
So much.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's just been the best. I can't wait to go home and tell Penny all about you. Penny knows when there's a good episode coming, because I've gone home and I can't stop talking about it. But I will.
This is one of them.
It's been such a privilege to meet you today, and thanks for so generously sharing, and so beautifully sharing your story as well. I love sport and I love intelligent people, and you are really both of them.
Ticking the boxes.
And you are really good at sport.
So you're one of those things, which is great. No, I just as someone who can articulate the story the way you did, I love a good storyteller. So yeah, you're a wonderful person, and we feel very lucky to.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, I did ask, but
Don't tell them that.
But we very excitedly said, "Oh, really? Okay, we'd love you to." Yeah.
Actually, the reason I said I did ask is I actually would never normally ask to do any media. Like, I don't love it in that way, but I love the space that you guys create. I love the way you help people tell their stories. I love the questions that you have, and it's really inspiring, and I love it. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Bronte.
Wow, I'm definitely telling Soph about that.
And I reckon Emma Watson will be pretty tempted to do this story.
She's probably finishing. She's listening right now, going, "Okay, I think I got a handle on this."
Yeah, she's like Hermione Granger. No, Bronte Campbell. Here we come.
Exactly. Bronte, thank you so much. Really lovely to meet you.
Amazing. Thank you.